typically when I do talks like this about my work, I feel kind of obligated to take a sort of long view in terms of the kinds of creative output that I've been involved with over the last 16 or 17 years. And I also feel an obligation to sort of discuss and kind of advocate for some of the things that we've been doing, including some of the artists that we work with over the years. So in some cases, the conversation about my own work is really a conversation about a lot of other artists' work as well. Back in the mid-90s, about 1995, we started working, not only taking work, contract work from other artists and dealers that were interested in producing editions for their artists, but we also started publishing our own editions. And so when we would invite an artist to be on the exhibition schedule at Gallery 16, we'd open up the shop to them to produce some kind of print edition or multiple or some artist book, some kind of, it's kind of a residency program essentially. And one of the early editions that we did was with an artist named William Kentridge from South Africa. And this is one of the prints from that edition. The fundamental sort of underlying current in all of these exhibitions that we've mounted over the years is to give artists the freedom to do whatever it is they want in the space. There's a distinct difference between the way that most commercial galleries operate and the way that we've always operated, or the curatorial programs even that emanate kind of out of academic worlds, is that in the commercial art gallery, the decisions about what artists are invited and what work gets shown is all about what is saleable, right? What that dealer thinks he can sell to his clientele. And all these clienteles are very narrow, right? So the notion of going in and experimenting in these commercial galleries is unheard of, because the experimentation doesn't warrant a marketplace. This one is even more confusing, because Charles Linder went out on a walk in the desert, found this Mustang. Like lots of things that you find in the West, shot up like target practice, right? And thought that it would be an interesting sort of foundation for a sculpture. So he trailered the Mustang into San Francisco, and he pitched the idea to me. He's like, look, here's what I want to do. I want to take this thing, where I found it, I'm going to trailer it in, we're going to trick it out, we're going to show it, then we're going to put it back. So what are we going to sell? He's like, nothing. We're going to convince a collector that it's not about the ownership of the thing, it's about facilitating the project, and what we're going to do is find a collector that is willing to pay for the production and the return of the piece, right? So that's the before part. That's it in the gallery space. So he powder coated it with this like iridescent white, really beautiful thing. He put a new bucket seat in there, and it was this gleaming sort of, reclaimed bit of refuse, right? Kind of typically American refuse, like the abandoned car, right? Most of the world would look at that and be like, are you kidding me, right? These are the things you throw away. And then put it back. So there's a GPS, so the collector that facilitated all of this, proved to be quite adventurous, because they're not taking ownership of this thing, but they do have the GPS coordinates, so if they want to go visit it, they know. So so this brings me to this, like, what I'm doing in the studio aside from the gallery end of things, which is as a painter. I mean, I've for the last 20 years, or I guess 16, 17 years, I've been showing my paintings, and they've all been they've been battling, in a way, my frustration with painting. I was, for a long time, really just frustrated with the way I was making work, and I think with every artist, you struggle to sort of keep what you're doing fresh and to establish some new ways of making that can continue to keep you interested in the process. And for painting, that just died for me. I couldn't. There was a period of about 4 or 5 years that I couldn't make anything as a painter. And I've got 2 boys, and when one of them was very small, they were somebody gave them for a birthday a paint by numbers set. And you guys all familiar with like what the paint by numbers thing looks like before you paint it? Well, that was this kind of epiphany for me, because it was a way to kind of bridge a kind of more conceptual, less subjective way of making painting. The paintings get poured, it's resin, a combination of resin and enamel. And just successive layers of building up the surface of these.
So are you adding the enamel to the resin? Is that
yeah. And all of the compositions are, in some ways, reactions against the way I've seen the landscape, depicted over time in both photography and painting. I've always found it to be kind of absurd, and so I've used the landscape as a foundation for the kind of pictorial space in my work. But yeah, just a foam brush and the resin. 2 skulls that have started to kind of repeat themselves in my work came from me tracing my sons, photographs of my sons in these vines, sort of like botanical forms. So the 2 faces of my boys I just kind of rendered as flowers. There was something interesting to me about the idea of making things also that were, that were made by hand but had this sort of vague relationship to something that might have been manufactured. They've got a super slick sort of quality about them in person. And I like the fact that my hand as an artist isn't that evident in the surface of the thing. That you don't see the brush stroke and you don't see my sort of toiling. Everything's poured for that reason.
How much longer do you think this specific creative...
Today, it's done. I'm not making it.
Now 4 years of nothing, or do you have another
I don't
avenue?
know. I'm in a super down... I'm struggling like crazy. I got writer's block like you wouldn't believe it. And part of it is just the idea of like continuing to grow. You just want to... You don't feel like you want to repeat yourself over and over and over, There's so many painters out there and so many artists in general that you see that create these huge careers for themselves, but the painting is the same friggin' painting they made in 1965. You're like, what the hell are they doing?
Right.
It makes you crazy. And I don't want to be that guy. So, I struggle with it a little bit. Just the fact that I'm painting at all. Painting isn't, galleries love it because it's marketable, right? But the art world as a whole, pick up a copy of Art Forum, right? Nobody's painting right. It goes through these ebbs and flows, right? So critically, it's frowned upon. Commercially, it's triumphing, right? And that's always been the way it is.